Well, okay, this brings up the next topic, and I'm really curious to what you think about this as an app developer. So a lot of companies are trying to get away from that ecosystem that both Apple and Google have created specifically around their stores. And Fortnite specifically was the big one in the press this last month, where they chose not to put Fortnite on Google Play. And instead, you have to go to their servers and download it directly from them. And then that way they don't have to pay Google the extra fees that they normally would have to. Unfortunately, they're stuck with Apple because Apple has a much more enclosed ecosystem and you can't really get around it. But I'm sure they would have done the same thing with Apple if it was an option. So,
I have a lot to say about that.
What do you think?
Yeah, okay, first of all, the Google Play store is getting a lot more intense. Just the other day I was submitting an application to it, and they had someone actually go through my game, screen by screen, and they wrote me an email and said, you need to change this, this, and this. And I've never had that come back from Google before.
So
I've
was
had
that
Apple
good?
do that.
Did you like that feedback?
I did like the feedback. Most of it had to do with their privacy policies and other things, and they had some other things they wanted me to change, but I was just shocked that there was somebody in Mountain View that was going through my app and had the time to take a look at it. So they really are upping their security in the Google Play store, just like Apple did years ago. And so I'm shocked that Android is letting Fortnite just install it using their own ecosystem.
Oh,
and,
Apple's not.
I'm sorry, Google
Yep.
Play, yeah. And that begs the question, will things like Steam suddenly get on our phones now without having to go through an app store? Because it really is a lot of money that you're giving these companies. I believe it's like 30% of whatever they purchase. Right now, I do freemium things where I make a game for free and then you can purchase items in it, but still 30% goes to them. And so mostly I like to get my revenue from advertising, which still gives a chunk to Google. So either way, you can't get away from it. But if I was a large corporation that had created Fortnite, I mean, they're going to make a lot more money this way. And there's a lot more Android users than you'd think, because a lot of people in Korea play Fortnite, a lot of Android users over there in that country. And so I think that was a smart business move on their side. And I think this is a slippery slope for Google. I think if they don't get in on a lasso immediately, it's going to slip away from them and more companies are going to do it.
So this also brings up another issue that was actually in the news this week is some security experts are actually quite concerned about people leaving that safer ecosystem of Google Play to go and get apps. And I know on a jailbroken phone, and maybe you don't even need to jailbreak iPhones anymore, you can still go get apps. Okay, so you have to jailbreak, which removes your warranty, but you can still go get apps outside of that protected space. So Top 10 VPN actually commissioned a study about malware found on Android devices. And surprise, surprise, most of the malware that's affecting devices right now are tied to Fortnite. And I mean, in fact, that's what they found. In fact, I don't think it was most, I think it was all the malware that's causing grief right now is people going, looking for Fortnite apps that can maybe give them an edge in the game. And they're downloading these apps onto their phone and giving them access to record and upload their phone calls, read their text messages, read their emails, access their photos. I mean, this is scary stuff. I mean, that's exactly what malware is there to do, is to steal your personal information and then benefit from it by selling it or blackmailing. I mean, it's scary stuff.
Well, not just that, but they could also put a bit miner on your phone and take away all of your processing speed and just, mine their own Bitcoins while you're trying to use your phone, and you'd have no idea why it's going so slow.
And your data goes through the roof.
Your data's through the roof. I actually like that you have that protected ecosystem. I remember even when we had Windows 95, Windows 3.1, and All the time people at school were telling me, hey, Dan, can you come over and fix my computer because I have a virus? And so I would constantly be formatting people's hard drives and reinstalling Windows.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a big problem in the late 90s, early 2000s. You would have just people coming up to me all the time and asking me to do that. The problem was all the time they were downloading stuff that they shouldn't have, and it would install the malware. And it looks like we're seeing that again with phones this time. I have one more thing I wanted to bring up about Fortnite before we finish. Did you hear about the divorce statistics through Fortnite?
Yes.
What was that about?
This was just an article I found that I thought was hilarious, and there was a company that started mining data from divorce courts and was looking at the reasons why people are getting divorced. They found over 200 divorces within the last year or so, blamed Fortnite addiction as a reason for divorce.
That's hilarious.
It is hilarious. I mean, they specifically said a game. They didn't say, oh, my spouse spends too much time playing video games. They said, my spouse spends too much time on Fortnite. So
I wonder how many of them were women. 0. Yeah. Maybe 2.
Maybe 2 out of 200. So this is interesting. Now, digital addiction is a real thing. I mean, I hadn't heard of Fortnite being to blame in the past for divorces, but I actually do know people who have gotten divorced over digital addiction, video games, pornography. These are things that you can definitely be addicted to on your technology. And it's now actually been added. Digital addiction has been added to the 3, so it's now the 4 most common causes of divorce. So right up there to addiction to drugs, alcohol, and gambling. Now it's addicted to digital media. Fascinating.
Well, that was a great podcast, Matt. We will see you guys next week. Check us out on YouTube. You can also check us out on Twitter at Tech Time Show PC. And we will hit you up next week.
Talk at you next week.